What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind, and today I'm going to be talking about my issues with Doctor Who fans. So without further ado, let's get into it. Doctor Who fans have to be some of the most diverse in the world. I mean, the show's been going for 60 years now, and whether you've watched the show since 1963 or 2023, every fan has their own opinions on which Doctor is the best, which companion is the best, which era of the show is the best. And I have to say, for many years now, I have thoroughly enjoyed interacting with fellow Doctor Who fans and discussing which Doctors, are more complex than others, and it's always really interesting. However, in recent years, and especially for me personally, the 60th anniversary specials highlighted this, how much toxicity there is within the Doctor Who fandom, especially YouTubers. A lot of Doctor Who YouTubers seem to not value opinion whatsoever. And it's really strange to me in a fandom which should be so used to change, because every couple of years the show experiences a regeneration. The main actors change, the showrunners change, the whole style and tone of Doctor Who changes. And yet I'm noticing more and more as time's going on that people seem to kind of dig their heels in, and anyone who seems to disagree with them is an issue. And I just think that's my issue with Doctor Who fans. So in this video, I'm going to explain with some examples why I have such a problem with certain Doctor Who fans. So the 60th anniversary specials were released not so long ago, and there was a lot of hype around these specials. Obviously, David Tennant was returning, this time as the 14th Doctor, Catherine Tate was back as Donna Noble, and Russell T Davies, the man who brought Doctor Who back in 2005, was returning as showrunner, and obviously it was celebrating the show's 60th anniversary. So I think everyone was excited about Doctor Who, and everyone was sat down on that Saturday night to watch the first special, The Star Beast. And let me tell you my opinions on these anniversary specials. The Star Beast, I thought it was a decent return to form. It weren't anything special, but it at least felt like Doctor Who for me. As someone who was quite disappointed with the Jodie Whittaker era, it was nice for me, at least the Star Beast seemed to be what I consider Doctor Who to be. Wild Blue Yonder was a fantastic episode, really out there, and The Giggle I thought was an amazing episode and a perfect way to round off the 14th Doctor's arc. But then I looked into fans' reaction to these specials, and it's fair to say it is mixed, just like any anniversary special. But what I noticed is that people in comment sections on Doctor Who seem unable to accept any alternative opinion other than theirs. The amount of comments I have seen saying if you enjoy these specials then you are a traitor to the Doctor Who fandom, or this isn't Doctor Who, I feel ashamed for the people who claim to be fans and enjoy it. And all these comments, which I consider quite nasty at the end of the day, really got me thinking, why is there this toxicity? Why does there appear to be now just a failure to have a good old honest debate without name calling, without slagging each other off, without saying that I'm a better fan than you because I didn't like these specials whereas you did? Why can't there just be an open and honest discussion about what is better in Doctor Who? It doesn't mean that one side is right and the other is wrong. It's called debate. Doctor Who is a massive fandom. There are loads of different opinions, and that's a good thing. But it just seems that a lot of fans, especially on YouTube and social media in general, seem to have really arrogant views on their view being the right one, the correct way, and everyone else is being wrong. And I just think that's wrong. Now, YouTubers seem to be the heart of the problem, if you ask me. YouTube channels such as Bolstrek, Nerdrotic, Clownfish TV are very negative YouTube channels, which does make sense because, let's face it, these channels thrive off negativity. If you post content, and I've seen it even in just YouTube videos I do, and I'm a very, very tiny YouTuber, if you do videos which are praising a show, then it doesn't get as many views if you are doing a video which is heavily criticising a show. So I can understand why these YouTube channels exist and why they continue to double down on how much negativity they have towards a show. But let's take Bolstrek as a prime example. And I used to actually enjoy Bolstrek videos back in 2018. I agreed with him on a lot of what he was saying about Chris Chibnall not being a very good writer and how his direction of the show weren't exactly the best thing for Doctor Who. I watched some Bolstrek recently, especially his reviews of the 60th anniversary specials, and what shocked me, and what I haven't noticed before, is how angry that man seems to get, and also how he doesn't really come up with any credible arguments. Take the Starbeast, for example, and a lot of people were angry with the Starbeast because of the character of Rose Noble. She's a transgendered character, and the actor who portrays her is a transgendered actor as well. And I can understand why people dislike this character. I think a lot of people felt she didn't have very good development. But people like Bolstrek seem to just double down on the fact that she's transgender and she went on about being transgender. Well, at the end of the day, if this is a transgender character, then I think it should highlight that she's transgender. I mean, it would be a big thing to ignore. I mean, if anything, I thought Russell T Davies dealt with that matter in quite a subtle way. If it was Chris Chibnall, you would literally have Rose Noble standing there for 10 minutes explaining all the troubles she's been through. But with Russell T Davies' script, you actually got to see what a lot of transgendered people have to go through, from having bullies pick on her, from having her relatives struggling to get used to the new terminology to use around her. So I actually thought Russell T Davies dealt with it in a subtle as well as realistic way. But YouTube channels like Bolstrek just seem to be angry that transgendered people exist, which is a strange thing. I mean, I had a look at a thumbnail from Nerdrotic which had Rose Noble's face, and it was photoshopped onto a muscular man's body. Now, that's not really a credible argument, is it? I mean, that is simply just insulting to transgender people. That's not exactly a criticism of the show, that's more a criticism of a social issue. So I think I can understand why there is criticism towards Rose Noble. I just think that a lot of these YouTube channels seem to imply that there is actually an issue with transgenderism as a whole, which is obviously not Doctor Who's fault. That's more a social issue than anything else. These YouTube channels seem to also put forward the idea that if you enjoy these 60th anniversary specials, if you enjoyed the Jodie Whittaker era of Doctor Who, then you aren't a true fan. You are part of the woke mob that has hijacked the show from traditional fans. And I struggle with this argument. Now, I will admit, I didn't like the Jodie Whittaker era of Doctor Who. Now, did I ever say, in any of the videos I've done on that era, that people who enjoyed it were wrong? No, I didn't. Because at the end of the day, they're entitled to their opinion as much as I'm entitled to mine. I'm not better than them in any way. But a lot of these YouTube channels seem to put forward the idea that you're part of the woke mob if you enjoy these anniversary specials. And I just don't understand that argument at all. I mean, a lot of these YouTube channels will say that Doctor Who is now a progressive show. You know, I've heard Bolstrek saying that, you know, oh, progressivism, it's ruined Doctor Who. Well, Doctor Who has always had progressive elements. I mean, you're telling me that the Daleks are not showing how flawed an ideology Nazism is. You know, the Daleks are fascist. The idea that there are pure beings which should have supremacy over everything else. I mean, that's technically just a massive middle finger to Nazi ideas of fascism. You know, the 1970s, John Pertwee's era in particular, played heavily on environmental issues of the time, and it did it in a very good way. You know, and even since the revival, you know, Planet of the Ood, that's a massive piece on modern day slavery. And to be honest, I think a lot of these YouTube channels just take advantage of PC culture and attacks on the woke mob, which is obviously very popular on the internet these days. You're telling me if Series 1 was released now, instead of focusing on the series, a lot of these YouTube channels would probably just have a thumbnail showing Captain Jack and the Ninth Doctor kissing in the parting of the ways and saying, oh look, the gay agenda is now in full force. I mean, in Gridlock, a series 3 episode released in 2007, it showed 2 elderly women who were married. Now, same-sex marriage in the UK weren't legal until 2013. So I bet a lot of these YouTube channels would probably be saying now, well, that was part of the gay agenda. So what I'm saying is, I feel like a lot of these YouTube channels focus on tiny things. And nowhere is that more clear than with the 60th anniversary episode, Wild Blue Yonder. Now, as most of you will know, in the intro of that episode, Isaac Newton was there, portrayed by an actor of Asian descent. Now, do I personally agree with this? No, I don't. It's historical fact that Isaac Newton was white, so I have no real idea why that actor was chosen to portray that part. He might have been a good actor, but I just think he was miscast. It's no different than having Malcolm X portrayed by a white man. It just wouldn't be historically accurate. But at the end of the day, that was a 2-minute scene in a 60-minute episode. So was I going to let that ruin the episode for me? No, because it was a very brief scene. Yes, it's a criticism of that episode, but that doesn't mean that the episode's a write-off just due to that scene. And yet, I remember looking at a thumbnail from The Critical Drinker discussing Wild Blue Yonder, and the primary thing on that thumbnail was Isaac Newton. A 2-minute scene in a 60-minute episode, and a lot of YouTube channels chose to focus on that element entirely. So I just think that a lot of these YouTube channels take advantage of PC culture and the attack on wokeness, which is very relevant at the moment, and anyone who seems to disagree with them is just accused of being part of the woke mob. I mean, I wouldn't want to be showrunner of Doctor Who, because it seems whoever is showrunner gets hated. I mean, this has been a trend since the late Stephen Moffat era. I mean, I remember a lot of people watching Doctor Who during the Capaldi era and saying, oh, Stephen Moffat, he's the worst thing that's ever happened to Doctor Who. You know, he needs to be sacked, he needs to be moved on. And then, you know, Chris Chibnall came in, and then Chris Chibnall was the most hated figure, and, you know, he was the worst thing that ever happened to Doctor Who. And then he moved on, Russell T Davies has come back, and all of a sudden Russell T Davies is now the worst thing that has ever happened to Doctor Who, and everyone wants him sacked, or at least that's what some YouTube channels will imply is the case. Now, if you're asking me, do I think that Russell T Davies knows how to write for Doctor Who? Yes, because he's proven again and again that he understands what Doctor Who is about, and he understands how popular Doctor Who is, especially to fans. I mean, give Russell T Davies his due. He goes on all the talk shows, and he does have interactions with people on social media as well. So he's very open, unlike Chris Chibnall, who hardly did any interviews or TV interviews. So I just think whoever is showrunner of Doctor Who, it's a poison chalice. You're always going to bear the brunt. And at the end of the day, these people are usually just fans. You know, Russell T Davies, Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall, they all grew up watching Doctor Who. And they're only putting to screen what their interpretation of the show is. And you know, even as much as I dislike Chris Chibnall, I'm not going to say that he's not a fan of the show, because, you know, he clearly is a fan of the show. I just didn't agree with the direction he took it. But that doesn't mean that I am 100% right and everyone else around me is wrong. You know, if you enjoyed the Chris Chibnall era, then good for you. You found something in it which I couldn't find in it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to call you an idiot and say you're not a true fan. You know, because that's just stupid. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yes, I've watched the show since 2005. The 50th in 2013 are idiots. You know, because, you know, they're still fans of the shows. They still enjoy it. So I have no right to kind of claim a superiority because I've been a fan for longer. You know, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I have to say, for these YouTube channels like Bolstrek and Nerdrotic, who seem to get so angry and hate-filled about Doctor Who, at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying the show anymore, then why don't you just stop watching it? You know, if I dislike something as much as you claim to dislike it, then why are you still watching it? Or has it got something to do with the fact that your YouTube channels need content? Last thing I'm going to say in this video, and because I hear a lot of YouTube channels and a lot of fans going on about it as well, is the viewing figures. Now, viewing figures are probably the easiest way to see if a show's doing well or not. And a lot of fans were claiming that the 60th anniversary specials were a disaster in viewing figures. You know, a lot of YouTube thumbnails shows, you know, the down line graphed arrow and saying, oh, Doctor Who in ratings collapse as people turn off from the woke propaganda. But I don't think they go in depth enough. Now, the Doctor Who anniversary specials got between 7 to 6 million viewers. Which, yes, compared to David Tennant's final episodes in 2010, yeah, that is low. You know, Tennant's final episode, I think, got about 11 to 12 million viewers. But what you got to understand is how much the TV landscape has changed since 2010. And even, let's say, 2013, where the 50th anniversary special got over 10 million views. It's even changed since 2013. I mean, streaming services are now massive. Back in 2010 and even 2013, they weren't as big. You know, not as many people watch terrestrial TV anymore because there's just so many other options. And obviously you've got to take into the fact that Disney Plus figures are not actually included in the viewing figures. I mean, they can be added to kind of show a more well-rounded. I think the Star Beast now has nearly 9 million views if you count the Disney Plus figures as well. So I just think that people misinterpret what the viewing figures actually say. You know, the fact is that the Star Beast was the second most watched programme that night. Wild Blue Yonder and The Giggle were the third most watched programmes on their respective days. So Doctor Who is still a very popular programme. It still gets impressive viewing figures and it still seems to have a lot of people that enjoy it. I mean, even if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, and I have to be honest, I haven't checked since the Star Beast, critical consensus is very positive. Audience consensus was about 45% last time I checked, which people will say, oh yeah, that's low. But when you compare it to Series 11 and Series 12, which were getting kind of like 10%, 43% is not actually that bad. And actually, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes audience scores, much like I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes critic scores either, because I looked at some of the audience reviews and it was literally just people saying hashtag RIP Doctor Who. That's not really a review. I mean, you haven't really told me what was wrong with it. You've just said hashtag RIP Doctor Who. So yeah, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes for its critic score or its audience score. I judge it on my own personal enjoyment of the show. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future. Now, I just made this video because just from the reactions I was seeing to the 60th anniversary specials, and all that I wish for is to go back to like 2010, 2011, when, yeah, we all had different opinions about Doctor Who, but we could all respect each other's different opinions and we could debate and discuss them in a civilized way. I just feel like now that is so much harder because people just get plain nasty, and I just think that there is no need for it. So if you take away anything from this video, it's that just be nice to each other. You know, if you have a different opinion, that is fine. Feel free to comment. But you don't have to say, like, this is BS and, you know, oh, you're not a true fan or anything like that, because it's just not required whatsoever. That's why I enjoy Doctor Who YouTubers. Like, I used to really enjoy the Who Addicts, because I thought the Who Addicts, while I disagreed with them on several things, I could still watch their videos and enjoy them. And also a really underrated one, Wingy Media. I really like Wingy Media because even though I disagree with him on certain things, I can still watch his videos and appreciate his views, and sometimes I can even see it from his point of view and he can kind of change my opinion. So yeah, I think that Doctor Who YouTubers like that, who are more open to a debate, are actually the ones which should get more respect than ones like Bolstrek, which just seem to feed off negativity. So anyway guys, this was my final video for 2023. It's been a really good year on this YouTube channel. Thank you to all those who've liked and commented and subscribed over the past year. I hope you're having a great festive period. I hope you have a great new year, and I'll see you in 2024. See ya!